Welcome everyone who's here so far. We really appreciate you coming on, and a lot of you came on early and we're super grateful. And thanks for waiting in the waiting room while we got everything set up. And you have come to the first day of a Drought Resources Webinar Series. And today it's going to be an introduction to the series, as well as a presentation from Lisa Garay from the Farm Service Agency about drought resources. So some housekeeping first. And if you are someone that's calling in, I would recommend grabbing a pen and paper to write some of this down. First, let's keep ourselves muted unless you are the presenter. And in the last 10 minutes, you'll have a chance to unmute yourself. So here you'll see the circled mute button. You should find it usually at the bottom of your screen, sometimes at the top. For folks that are calling in, you can use the *6 in order to unmute yourself, and then *6 to mute yourself again. And then if you're on Zoom, you can send questions or comments into the chat box, which is also circled here. And for reference, this webinar is going to be recorded and distributed. So if you ask a question in the end, please, if you don't want to be on camera, turn your video off. If you don't mind, it's totally fine to have it on. For folks on Zoom, there is an option to either have a gallery view or a speaker view. And it looks like this here. And you can select either one and see what you like. If you're in full screen, it might look a little different, like the option of having a few boxes or one box or just a line, and you can test those out and see which ones you prefer. For folks that are calling in, we suggest that you write down this information that I'm about to recite. If you can, please text this. You're going to text what I'm about to say to a number that I'm about to tell you. So text NMCEWL 422. You're going to text that to the number 22333. And when you do that, then for the rest of this presentation, you'll be able to text in questions and comments that way. So that's for folks who don't have chat box, but you can also use it if you're on the computer, if you want to try it out. If you need technical support at any time, you can call Tyler, and that's at 505-393-1425. Ariel?
Hello, everyone. Gracias, Jehová. My name is Ariel Quintana. I am the Education and Outreach Director for the Quivira Coalition, and I am also a tribal member from Cocha de Pueblo here in New Mexico. I'm honored today to share our land acknowledgement. Quivira has been practicing this starting in 2018, and we're trying to normalize this kind of acknowledgements, especially in a virtual setting. And so I'll go ahead and get started. We acknowledge that the land in what is currently known as New Mexico is the ancestral and present-day home to the Apache, Navajo, and Pueblo tribes and peoples. This land also housed places of trade, gathering, and ceremony for numerous other indigenous tribes, some of which are still used in such ways. We recognize indigenous peoples as the original and long-standing stewards of this land. Their extensive knowledge and practice of agriculture and land management established the foundation of land stewardship in the Southwest. We recognize that the land and this knowledge was forcibly taken and appropriated from indigenous peoples. As fellow stewards, we honor and respect the land and the peoples who have cared for this land through time immemorial, and we commit to continue building partnerships with indigenous peoples. We offer our thoughts, prayers, and actions to support our indigenous communities who at this time face exacerbated impacts of COVID-19 due to long-standing histories of disparity and injustice. If you'd like to learn more about our land acknowledgement or how to conduct land acknowledgements, please feel free to reach out to the Quivira Coalition.
Thank you so much, Ariel. So today, to introduce myself, and I think you can all see me on video, I can't see myself. I'm Leah Pottery. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator, and we are so grateful that you're here today to be with us and to resource yourself with information and resources about drought, which I know is a very challenging thing to go through, and we're here to help. So today's webinar is going to be co-hosted by the partners you see here on the screen, and that is Western Land Owners Alliance, New Mexico Coalition to Enhance Working Lands, the New Mexico State Land Office, and the Quivira Coalition. And I'm going to give everyone an opportunity from each partner to introduce themselves. And I'll start with the Quivira Coalition. The Quivira Coalition is an organization that builds soil, biodiversity, and resilience on Western working landscapes. We foster ecological, economic, and social health through education, innovation, and collaboration. We do this through a few different programs that we have. We have the Land and Water Program to help ranchers restore and build resilience on their lands. The new Agrarian Program to educate future land stewards. We have our education program, which includes workshops like the one you are all at today, as well as our annual conference and open source publications. Our Carbon Ranch initiative is new and supports soil health and carbon sequestration through research, implementation, and education. If you want to hear or learn any more about Quivira Coalition, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be sharing my contact info at the end of the slideshow. And now I'm going to pass the mic over to Tyler. Would you be willing to introduce NM Cool?
I can do that. Thank you, Leah. And thank you to Quivira and WLA and the Land Office. We are very excited to be here together today. New Mexico Cool, Coalition to Enhance Working Lands, is a collaborative effort between a number of organizations in the state to better partner on all the various ways that we improve working lands, whether that's agriculture, conservation, looking at hydrological function of our working lands, a whole variety of things. But at this stage, really looking at bringing in a wide group of voices, diverse voices, to have more conversation about how we resource our state better and take on some of the longstanding issues, both land-based and culturally, that sometimes impact or inhibit the ways in which we work together and do agriculture. And so we're really excited about this opportunity to continue working with these groups and to continue working with you all. So we're really glad that you're here today. Thanks.
Thanks, Tyler. And Leslie, could you say some words about the Western Landowners Alliance?
Sure, thank you, and thanks everybody for joining us today. Western Landowners Alliance is a West-wide landowner-led organization headquartered here in Santa Fe. Our mission is to advance policies and practices that sustain working lands, connected landscapes, and native species. We're dedicated to promoting and supporting private stewardship in the West. We do this through landowner-led advocacy, shared knowledge and communications, and we ensure that landowner interests are represented in policy matters that affect our lands and our communities and operations. We provide people with opportunities to participate in a community of practice through shared knowledge on a peer-to-peer basis. And we work to communicate the value and perspectives of private stewardship to policymakers and the public.
Awesome. Thank you, Leslie. And then next, Howard, would you like to introduce the State Land Office as well as give us some background as to why we're here today?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Howard Gross, and I serve as the Assistant Commissioner of Surface Resources at the State Land Office. On behalf of Land Commissioner Stephanie Garcia-Richard and our staff, I'd like to welcome you all to this webinar series, and I hope you find it useful. The land office's mission is to optimize revenue generated from state trust lands for public education and other beneficiaries, while also maintaining the long-term health of those lands for future generations. We manage 9 million acres of surface and 13 million acres of subsurface resources. Most of the 9 million acres of surface are leased to agricultural producers, often with other revenue generating activities occurring on that land. But we really rely on our ag lessees as valued partners to help with and really oversee stewardship of those lands. The Land Office has an agricultural advisory committee that we work with in many ways, including how we can help our lessees in their stewardship. And so we've, in discussing the topic of drought with them, we really wanted to explore how to make tools available to our lessees for coping with it. We know it's an issue so many producers face too often in our dry and arid state. And as your partners in stewardship, the Land Office wants to provide any resources we can to assist you. So this is why we came together with the Quivira Coalition, with New Mexico Cool, and the Western Landowners Alliance to assemble this webinar series. And we'd like to thank them for their work on this, from lining up the speakers and providing the technical platform and working with us on publicity. We also appreciate the speakers who've agreed to participate, including today's speaker, Lisa Garay from the Farm Service Agency. And I'd also like to give a thanks to Bill Sobel, who chairs our Agricultural Advisory Committee, for his guidance and assistance. So without that partnership, none of these webinars this week would be happening, and we're grateful for your help.
Thank you so much, Howard. We appreciate your appreciation, and are also ourselves appreciative of this amazing team that's put this together from all these different partnerships, and very much so to Lisa Garay today for joining us from the Farm Service Agency. And this next portion, we're actually going to be surveying all the participants. So I will help folks understand how we're going to do this. We're using a website and to do this poll, and if you text NMCool422 to the number 22333, then you'll be able to participate in this poll. For folks who do not have a cell phone and cannot text, I just ask that you sit tight for the next few minutes while we move through this poll. If you do have the ability to text, we'd love for you to do that. Again, that's text this, NMCEWL422, and text that to the number 22333. So please join us and help us gather some information so we can best serve you. The first question we want to ask folks is, what information do you hope to hear this week during the Drought Resources Webinar Series? And I'll put a time limit on how long it takes to answer that question, and I'm sure we all have to get our feet under us to figure out how to text NMCool422 to 22333, and I'll play a familiar song that will help you time out your answers. So if you can do that. Thank you. We're going to move on to the next question. Next question. And for this, to answer this, you don't have to do anything different. Just text to that same number. Once you've entered the NMCool422, you're in and you're good. So the next question is, what information do you hope to hear in regards to drought for future workshops? So those workshops beyond this week. And I will cue up the song again. Here the ad plays, because of course, YouTube. Thank you. Moving on to the next question. The last question is, what future workshop topics are you interested in related to agriculture and land management? Here we go. Able to respond, and for the folks that weren't, we appreciate your patience. And we won't be doing this at every webinar, just this one on this day, as we are introducing everything and getting to know everyone and figure out what people want. So thank you. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenter today, Lisa Garay. Lisa Garay is the Valencia County Executive Director for FSA. She's worked with FSA for 10 years and herself grew up in a farming family around the Hatch area and graduated from NMSU. And so we want to welcome you, Lisa Garay.
All right, this is my first Zoom meeting, so hopefully this goes smooth. I don't think we should have any issues, just a little bit different. Little different than the kind of presentations I'm normally giving this time of the year. So let's go ahead. If anybody's having problems hearing me, please go ahead and send a chat or something like that, and that way I can speak up or we can figure something else out. But let's go ahead and start with the presentation. So if whoever's in charge of the slides would hit the next slide. Just going to kind of do a quick little overview on our disaster programs that directly affect drought, and primarily for our ranchers out there. So if there are any follow-up questions or something that I didn't hit on, please save them for the end of the presentation. My contact information is there. So let's go ahead and get rolling with the 2018 Farm Bill changes. And this is really geared more towards my grazing associations. I have quite a bit of tribal grazing associations throughout the 4 counties that I service. I service Bernalillo, Sandoval, Valencia, and Cibola counties. So we do have a lot of these going on. And something that did change with the new 2018 Farm Bill was that, you know, grazing associations can no longer certify all of the acres and animal units like they have in the past. So in the past, a lot of these grazing associations may have a permit from their pueblo, or we've even got some from the Forest Service that it encompasses all of the members of the grazing association. So with the new 2018 Farm Bill, some of these things have changed. So that's no longer eligible. Each livestock owner will now have to certify their own acres or animal units that they are permitted for the program year. Each livestock owner will now have to apply for all of our disaster programs, the NAP program, the livestock forage program, and the emergency assistance for livestock program. Unfortunately, the grazing associations can no longer apply for the NAP grass insurance for the whole permit like they have in the past, so that's a big change. If the association does own any livestock, I know a lot of times our grazing associations will own the bulls. They may take out a NAP policy or apply for any of our disaster programs on the livestock that is owned by the association. So what the new provisions really we're looking at now are that each member has to certify their risk in the land and the livestock that they're applying for in all of our disaster programs. So let's go to the next slide. So I always like to touch on this, some USDA terms that we refer to a whole lot. And those of you that are in any type of state or federal government, you know, the alphabet soup that we all kind of just know, but a lot of our farmers and ranchers out there have no idea what we're referring to. So the term socially disadvantaged, that's going to encompass anybody that identifies as a minority or a woman or a woman. So that's the term that the Farm Service Agency uses quite a bit. And throughout my presentation, you will see where some of these terms can be very helpful to you. The limited resource term, that means if you are annually grossing less than these numbers that I've listed, there is a website that can be provided, or I believe even if you do a Google search for USDA limited resource, it'll bring up the tool if you live outside of these 4 counties, and it will give you that number that we're looking at. So if in the last 2 tax years you have annually grossed less than this number, you would be qualified under limited resource. And the last term is beginning farmer or rancher. All this means is that you have not been farming or ranching for more than 10 years. So let's go to the next slide. So the Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assistance Program, we refer to it as NAP or the Crop Insurance Program, I think as a lot of you have come to know it as. What it does is it provides financial assistance for non-insurable crop losses due to a natural disaster. It's kind of like car insurance. You have to have the coverage before the disaster happens. So you must be enrolled in the program before the start of your growing season. Now here's the big kicker that I always encourage my ranchers or my farmers. If you fall into any of those categories, socially disadvantaged, limited resource, or beginning farmer or rancher, there is no fee for this program. Next slide, please. So I'm kind of focusing, my whole presentation is focused more to our ranchers. So like I said, if there are farming questions, I can answer those at the end of the presentation. But we do provide NAP for native grass, which is going to be your rangeland out there. These are some big things to keep in mind with this program. We don't start providing compensation until after a 50% loss. So that first 50% loss due to maybe drought, that's on the rancher. So FSA doesn't come in to start helping until after that. Our partners, NRCS and NMSU County Extension Service, typically determine the loss, and they're going to determine that loss annually. So, you know, we usually don't get those losses, the determinations until about February, because they're going to be analyzing the whole calendar year from January 1st through December 31st. The other thing, people tend to get this program confused with some of our other livestock disaster programs. This is a crop insurance program. So think of it that way, that we're only concerned with your grass. It has nothing to do with the livestock out there. So we're just looking at the range conditions and how much grass you grew or you did not grow in the calendar year. Kind of going back to my grazing association slide, in the past, the grazing associations were able to take out coverage for the whole permitted area and all of the acres. that's no longer going to be the case. So each member of the association must also have coverage for 2020 forward. Like I said before, you know, this program, you need to have the coverage before the growing season starts. So the deadline is December 1st. We're already way past the deadline to get coverage for 2020, but the deadline for 2021 is December 1st of this year. So let's go to the next slide. So like I said, we put these 2019 grazing loss percentages out about March of this year. So we're always paying a year behind, just because, like I said, we have to give our partners enough time to do a complete range assessment for the whole calendar year from January 1st through December 31st. So they typically get that into us about February, and we're able to go ahead and publish that out about March or April. And then that's whenever we start making our payments, if you are due a payment. So for example, if you look at Bernalillo County, for 2019, it was assessed at a 55% loss. So what I always tell people to keep in mind is those ranchers that were in Bernalillo County, they're actually only getting paid 5%, because remember, the first 50% is on the rancher. So in New Mexico, we are paying on this program in every single county, but some are assessed higher than lower. So we put out this map every year, and like I said, we usually start making those payments about March. Let's go to the next slide. So like I said, we do provide NAP for all other crops, for a bunch of different crops, which I'll get into, but for the native grass, you can only select the first tier of coverage, which is a 50% loss. For all the other crops, you can buy up your coverage. And what kind of helps with that is your loss trigger will significantly go down. So if you buy up the NAP coverage all the way to the 35%, what that means is that the farmer is only responsible for the first 35% of the loss, and then FSA will come in. The only hang up with this is that there is a premium fee attached to that crop. And so it is based on the type of crop that you're wanting to get the coverage on. But if you are SDA, the initial service fee of $325 is waived, and then the premium fee for that crop is cut in half. So, you know, like I say, it is if you can fall into any of those socially disadvantaged categories, either being socially disadvantaged, limited resource, or beginning farmer or rancher, you know, the cost for this program significantly decrease. So anybody out there that's got anything, you know, potential that we can cover in NAP, I definitely would urge you to apply. Next slide, please. So this is a list of all of the crops that we can cover under the NAP program. Unfortunately, April 15th was our last deadline for the 2020 coverage year, if you will. So these are all the deadlines to get coverage for the 2021 growing year. So like I said, for any of you out there that might, you know, be planting any types of fruits and vegetables, I always kind of stress that, because fruits and vegetables tend to be a lot more costly to grow and raise than some of our other crops. But biggest thing on this program is you've got to get in before the deadline to get your coverage. I always get calls this time of year from farmers that have, you know, fruits and vegetables that have got hailed on. And unfortunately, there's nothing that I can do for them because they weren't signed up for this program before the deadline, before their growing season started. So, like I said, it's a really good program, especially if you can fall into the category under one of those socially disadvantaged, to not have to pay the basic fee of $325. And then if you are interested in buying up your coverage, we cut those premiums in half. So like I said, really, really good program all the way around for our ranchers, for native grass, and then also for our farmers. But biggest issue are these dates, the deadlines to get in on. So next slide, please. Okay, the Livestock Forage Program. This is always a heavy hitter in New Mexico, and this one is, totally based on the drought. So what we do is we provide compensation for livestock feed losses due to drought conditions or fire on federally managed lands. The rancher needed to have owned the livestock 60 days prior to the county becoming eligible. To be eligible, the county, and it's any part of the county, has to be in a D2 drought status for 8 consecutive weeks. The other hangup is the rancher must have a current permit, lease, or deed, property taxes verifying the ownership and their risk on that property. So, if you own the property, we will accept tax records or, like I said, a warranty deed just to verify that you do own the property. So you can be running your livestock out there. Or we do ask for a permit. We've got a lot of BLM land out there. Obviously, the state land is out there, and a lot of tribal land. So we just need some kind of documentation verifying that you are okay to have your livestock out there grazing. And then sometimes we have different terms. So, it may not be all year round, but we do require that. So next slide, please. So, like I said, the Livestock Forage Program is based off of the U.S. Drought Monitor, and you can go to their website that's listed below, and anybody can search this. They update it every Thursday. So this was the latest one that I had when I submitted my presentation. But as you can see, we do have several counties in New Mexico that are already eligible for the Livestock Forage Program. We've got, let's see, McKinley, San Juan, Rio Arriba, Sandoval, Taos, Colfax, Union, Mora, Harding, San Miguel, Quay, Curry, and Roosevelt. So we do have quite a few of our counties right now that are eligible for 2020 LFP. So can I get the next slide, please? So people always ask, how come I'm only getting, a tier 1 payment and my neighbor in another county is at a tier 4? This is a really great chart that our national office has provided out to us. And this kind of goes into how we determine how much each county and each producer in each county should get. So like I said, the D2 to even trigger to get you in the program, you've got to be in that D2 for 8 consecutive weeks. If your county then goes into a D3 just for 1 day, which that's that bright red that you guys had seen on the map in the previous slide, that automatically bumps you up to a tier 3 payment. And if they stay for 4, it doesn't have to be consecutive weeks, but if they stay in that bright red for 4 weeks, that's going to trigger a tier 4 payment. Or if they hit that D4, the extremely exceptional drought, which is looks like a dark maroon to me. If you even hit that for 1 day, you're at a tier 5. And then if the county stays in that most severe D4 for 4 non-consecutive weeks, that county will max out at a tier 5 payment. And get the next slide, please. So, like I said, here's the most current LFP map that I have. The other counties that I had kind of rattled off on the drought monitor that were in a D2 drought status, I guess they haven't been in a D2 for 8 weeks consecutively yet because their counties have not all triggered in the LFP. So in the tier 1 payment, We've got McKinley, Sandoval, Mora, and Harding. And in the tier 3, we've got Union County. And in the tier 4, we've got San Juan, Rio Arriba, Taos, and Colfax. So, and these are the 2020 estimated payment rates per animal unit. The payment amount does fluctuate a little bit between cows and bulls, and then what we classify as non-adults, which would typically be our replacement heifers and steers. For this program, we do not pay for any of your calves or any of your livestock that weighs less than 500 pounds. We do compensate for sheep if I've got any sheep folks out there. And we do also compensate for your horses, any of your horses that you are using out on the ranch. Unfortunately, we can't pay for the high dollar roping horses, but any of your ranch horses that you guys are using on the ranch, they can be included in this program. I've seen plenty of BLM permits that also include horses, so it's not a big deal. All right, let's go to the next slide. So the Livestock Indemnity Program, this one, you know, sometimes we see a lot of it, sometimes we don't, but it provides compensation to the producer for 75% of the market value of the animal that died due to adverse weather conditions in excess of normal mortality. Like our other programs, the rancher must have owned the livestock 60 days prior to the death. They need to provide us with proof of beginning inventory. They also need to provide proof of death, and they need to provide us with some documentation showing that the producer had good management practices out there. Next slide, please. So adverse weather conditions. Unfortunately, drought is not an eligible weather event that we can claim on this program. Also, poor management practices aren't eligible. Hopefully nobody is doing this, but definitely in the summer months, we need to make sure that our animals do have adequate water and feed out there, especially right now that we are kind of in some pretty severe drought areas. You know, we need to be taking care of our animals, doing our due diligence to keep them surviving through the summertime and without as much feed as they're used to. So, you know, we will not reward poor management practices with this program. Some eligible adverse weather conditions: floods, blizzards, extreme cold, wildfires, extreme heat, and also lightning. So this time of year, we will see some applications come through for extreme heat and also for lightning. Next slide, please. So in that original blurb that I kind of went through that was, you know, kind of confusing, we also talk about in excess of normal mortality. So what this means is our New Mexico State Committee has set these normal mortality rates. And what that means to you is we will not start compensating until after these percentages have been crossed. So for example, for a beef adult cow, the rancher would have to cross a 1.5% normal mortality to get paid. So for example, if the producer had 100 head of cows and he had a few die, we would not pay for the first 2 because that's what we would qualify as a normal mortality percentage. So if the producer claimed that they had lost 5 due to lightning, we would be able to compensate them for 3. But they've got to cross this normal mortality percentage threshold before we can actually offer payment. So I do stress to people, you know, report your losses, because we may not be able to pay you for your first loss, but then after we kind of get past those first 2 cows or you know, whatever it may be, then we can start providing some compensation. Next slide, please. So here's what I'm talking about, reporting your notice of loss. You need to report it to the county office within 30 days. Unfortunately, by person is not going to be allowed right now during this COVID-19 shutdown. We are not allowing any visitors into any of our county offices right now throughout the state. But normally you would be able to come in person and report the notice of loss. You can always call us to report it. You can email us or you can fax us. Like I was just referring to, you can file multiple notice of losses throughout the calendar year. This program runs from January 1st through December 31st. So like I said, you may have lost maybe some calves this winter that froze. It got extremely cold and you lost a few of those. And when you reported your loss, they said, well, you know, that's going to cover your normal mortality. And then this time of year, we start having these crazy thunderstorms, and you had a few other calves that were too close to a cattle guard. They were struck by lightning and died. At that point, we would be able to provide compensation for those animals. So just something to keep in mind. You can file multiple notice of losses throughout the year, and then you can wait till the end of the year to file your application for payment. So we actually give you 60 days after the end of the calendar year to get all of your paperwork together and get it to us. So the deadline to actually apply for payment is February 28th of 2021. I just want to, you know, people get confused with deadlines and things of that nature. You have until till February 28th to complete your application, but you need to report your loss within 30 days of it happening. So don't call me on February 28th to say, hey, Lisa, I need to file my application for payment for my animals that died last February in a blizzard. So I'm going to tell you, you're not going to be eligible. You've got to report those losses within 30 days, and then we give you, you know, up until February to provide us all the additional supporting documentation that we need. So I'm going to go into that now. So next slide, please. So like I said at the very beginning of this program, we need you guys to prove to us your beginning and ending inventory. So typically what works, what I've seen come across my desk that we've been able to accept are either tax records, whatever you submitted to the county for that calendar year to verify your inventory numbers, or a lot of our tribal folks, they will provide us with their tally count that they do every year. So, and we also can, accept chattel inspections. If you get the livestock inspector out there to do an inventory, all of those things will suffice. Next slide, please. The other thing is we ask you guys to provide proof of death. What works really good with that are dated pictures. Most of us carry around our cell phones with that have cameras on them. So it's very easy just to take, take a few pictures of the animal whenever you found it, and that will suffice that requirement. The other thing that I had mentioned early on was that you must provide the county with producer management practices. What we usually will ask for is a copy of a contemporaneous producer record. All that means is, like the example shown on the screen, it can be a calendar when you went out to check on your animals, or if you had to take supplements, if you're working on fence, anything that you're writing down. I know some guys have like a little pocket calendar that they keep in their truck, they put in their pocket every day. If you have an Excel spreadsheet, if that's how you kind of keep track of your records, we will just request a copy of that at the end of the year whenever you're applying for your payment. So, okay. we'll go on to our last disaster program that we do have available. It is the Emergency Assistance for Livestock program. This program is the one that provides compensation due to natural disasters, which includes water hauling. So I know this is huge, huge, huge for here in New Mexico. Biggest thing is the county where your livestock are located must hit a D3 drought status according to the U.S. Drought Monitor. The other thing is we max out at 150 days of water hauling. So that's the most compensation that we can provide to everybody. Next slide, please. So here we're back to our handy dandy drought monitor. So like I said, in order to be eligible for this water hauling program, the county needs to have hit that D3 bright red status for just 1 day to make you eligible. Next slide, please. So like our other livestock disaster programs, this program runs on a calendar year, starting January 1st through December 31st. Like I said, to be eligible, your county has to hit that D3 status for 1 day. So currently, only San Juan, Rio Arriba, Taos, Colfax, and Union counties are eligible for 2020 water hauling. Like our livestock indemnity program, you need to report the date that you started hauling water to the county office within 30 days. The application for payment deadline is January 30th. So for this program, we only give you 30 days after the calendar year to get all your paperwork in line to apply for this program. So next slide, please. So in order to be eligible for this program, you needed to have owned your livestock 60 days prior to reporting your water hauling. You've got to be on eligible grazing land. So let's say that you've got a permit that only allows you to start grazing June 1st through October 31st. And for whatever reason, they let you go on early and you started hauling water in May, we've got to hold you down to those term limits that are set on your permit. So for that instance, if you called me and said, hey, Lisa, I started hauling water out there in May, and you provide me with your permit, I'm going to say, well, I can't start compensating you on the water hauling until June 1st because that's what your permit says. Most of our permits in New Mexico are 365 days a year, so we don't run into this a whole lot, but we do have some permits that are not year-round. So just wanted to put that out there. The livestock that you're hauling water to has to be physically located in the eligible drought county. So like I just rattled off, let's see, San Juan, Rio Arriba, Taos, Colfax, and Union. I have a lot of producers that run in Sandoval and Rio Arriba counties, and their permits are, it's almost split 50-50. I can't compensate them for any water that's being hauled into Sandoval County right now because Sandoval County is not at a D3. So it gets a little bit tricky sometimes if you've got a really big pasture or you've got a pasture that's in multiple counties. So, whenever you are reporting your water hauling, please, provide all this information to your county office. Like I said, you've got to be transporting during the eligible grazing term. So if your permit isn't year-round, we can only pay you for the time of hauling water during that term. Here's another big one that we always see. With this program, you needed to have had adequate livestock watering system or facilities before the eligible drought occurred. What that means is you needed to have a dirt tank or, a windmill with a livestock drinker prior to the drought. We are paying for severe drought out there where, you know, I know sometimes people pick up extra pastures and they have no water source on there. So you were going to have to haul water to them anyways. With this program, you wouldn't be eligible for that. So we understand, you know, a lot of these dirt tanks are completely bone dry. So producers are having to haul water out there to put water in them. They didn't collect enough water or snowpack throughout the winter to fill them up. Or like I said, if they have a windmill or some other kind of water source out there, or if it was, you know, if you had a really good stream or something running through your pasture, maybe up on your high country, and because of the drought, they've dried up, that's eligible for this program. But if you had no water source prior to the drought, you're not going to be eligible for this program. And also, you know, if you normally transport water out there to them, that's not going to be eligible for this program either. So like I said, just a lot of big things that come into place with this program, and sometimes people get upset, but those are the rules that we have been given down from our national office. And it's a disaster program. We shouldn't be having to pay for hauling water every year. This year we are in a pretty severe drought pretty early on in the year, especially in those 4 counties that I mentioned earlier. All right, so next slide, please. So the documentation, what am I going to request from you guys when you are applying for this program? If you hired out or you had to pay for water, we will need a copy of those bills or invoices, or if you had to hire somebody to haul the water for you, we will need a copy of those receipts. We will need a picture of the livestock watering system or facility. Like I said, that can just be your dirt tanks or ponds that are completely dried up. It could be, you know, your windmill or whatever water source, the creeks that totally dried up because of the drought. But we will need, you know, a picture of that to put in your file. And then we will need a copy of your contemporaneous records. Like I said, these are calendars, Excel spreadsheets, you know, wanting to know, you know, what days did you go up there? How many gallons were you hauling? Those types of things. Next slide, please. So these are going to be like the last questions that we're going to ask you. We're going to want to know the number of gallons that you were hauling in one trip. So, you know, you may say, okay, Lisa, well, you know, the tank that I have that fits in the back of my pickup truck, you know, it only holds, you know, 300 gallons. That's fine. You know, just tell me it holds 300 gallons, but I had to make 2 trips that day, and I've been going every other day. We're going to ask, you know, for that kind of information. We also need to know the livestock that you're hauling water to. You know, it could just be your mother cows, or you might just be hauling water to your heifers or your bulls. We need to know who are you hauling water to? Are you hauling, like I said, to cows and bulls and heifers and calves? Is it a combination? Is it just, you know, maybe one type of livestock? But we will be asking for that. Also, we need to know if you're doing it yourself, if you hired it out, or I know some of the pueblos do have contractors, so it may be contracted out. And that's just gonna, you know, they're just different payment rates for all of this stuff that I am asking. So I think that's it. Next slide, please. We can do text alerts, text messages. So this is something that has, my slide got a little bit messed up there, but we've really kind of been relying on this here lately, especially now that we're not allowing anybody in. A text message will come out of my office saying, hey, this county is now eligible for water hauling, or this county is now eligible for livestock forage program, or don't forget the NAP deadline for native grass is this date, or the deadline for, you know, watermelons and cantaloupes and whatever is this date. I try really hard to get the text messages out in a timely fashion. We usually try to get those out if it's a disaster program that just became eligible. We try to get those out pretty fast. And then for the NAP crop insurance, we try to get those out within 30 days. So I would urge any of you that are maybe interested in any of our programs to sign up, because it's a great reminder to say, oh yeah, okay, I have 30 days before this deadline. I better call the office and you know, touch base with them to see what I need to do to enroll. So the number that you're going to use to text would be 372-669, and in the body of your text, you're just going to put in NM Valencia, and that's going to sign you up for my 4 counties. Like I said, that's going to be Bernalillo, Cibola, Sandoval, and Valencia counties. Now, every county in New Mexico is covered by FSA, and we have, you know, and so all of those, my counterparts, all of those county directors do have the same capability. So the next slide is going to be all the codes. Can I get the next slide, please? So these are going to be all the different codes for all of the rest of the county offices in New Mexico. And we do have, we're starting to have quite a bit more combined county offices like myself. So, you know, if you're in Luna or Grant County, you can just do NM Luna, and that will sign you up for that county office for all those text messages. Our state office does also have a code, and those will just be directed at the whole state. Those won't be county specific, but that code is just simply New Mexico. So like I said, I wasn't sure how many people we would have from all over the state, so I just wanted to include those. This is my contact information, my telephone number. My email got a little bit messed up, but it's lisa.garay@usda.gov. So, or you can always call the office. Unfortunately, like I said, right now, none of our offices are allowing us to have visitors in, or even by appointment only. We are kind of starting to phase open, so hopefully within the next few months, we will be able to allow you in by appointment only. But as of right now, we can set aside phone appointments to kind of help you get you enrolled, or if you have any questions. But email and telephone are our primary ways of communication with you. So I think we were going to open it up for questions right now. I know I kind of went kind of long, so.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That was incredibly informative. And yes, we went a little over time, and we have a couple minutes for questions. We'll stay on for a few minutes after. If you need to leave, feel free to reach out to Lisa after the fact. As she said, her email's here. It got a little formatted and a little incorrectly. Sorry about that. Lisa.Garay, Garay @usda.gov if you need to leave and want to follow up with her after. So I will pass the mic to Ariel and Alicia to see if there are questions coming in.
Yes, thank you again so much, Lisa. And if questions, if you all have questions, feel free to send those in the Zoom chat box. Again, I'll repeat the poll everywhere information. If you're calling in and you can only text, please, that number is going to be 22333. And so that is the information you will put in your to field, and then you will text NMCEWL or 22. After you submit that initial information, you can text in your questions. Lisa, we did have a question come in through Poll Everywhere of how do new ranchers know what programs are available and if they qualify? And so I guess just of the programs you mentioned, do new ranchers qualify for them, and do they just meet those different criteria?
Yeah, so anybody, you know, if you haven't participated with the USDA or Farm Service Agency, you are eligible for our programs. as long as you have owned the livestock 60 days prior to, most of these disaster program start dates. So yeah, being new to this, that won't kick you out. The only thing that it may kick you out of is the NAP crop insurance program, because more than likely you wouldn't have signed up in time for the current calendar year to receive payment on that. Another great place, and I should have put that on my slide, but farmers.gov is a really, really great place for people to check out all of our programs. They're going to have the most current information regarding disaster programs and all of our programs listed on that website. Also, whenever you sign up with us and you get into our database, we will ask for an email address, and our state office will email out a state newsletter monthly, and that's going to have all of the programs that are currently running and open for sign up. And then myself, the counties, sometimes when we will mail them out monthly, but sometimes it's every couple months, depending on what disaster programs are going on. So like I said, once you get in our database or even sign up for the text messages, we won't bombard you with emails. Like I said, you may get 2 a month from us. The text messages are the same way. I can't send out more than 2 a month. But if you're not in our database and you just kind of want more information, farmers.gov is definitely the place to look.
Thank you, Lisa. And we don't have any other submissions through Poll Everywhere, and I also see there's no questions coming in through the Zoom chat box. So I do want to open it up. If there's a question that someone's hanging on to right now, feel free to unmute yourself. Again, if you're joining by your computer, you will see on the bottom of your Zoom toolbar that there is a button that says mute or unmute. If you are calling in by phone, please remember that you will need to press *6 to both unmute and mute yourself. And so I'll leave it open for a few seconds if anyone wants to ask a question to Lisa right now.
I hear a lot about water hauling, but is there anything for buying extra feed during a drought? I am in Union County in a severe drought, so just wondering about that. Thanks.
Okay, so Union County, you would qualify for the Livestock Forage program, and that's the one that it's designed to help you guys with your feed costs. So I would urge you to apply for that, and it's going to be based off of the number of heads you have, and your permits or your private land. The other thing that I really didn't touch on is the Farm Service Agency does also provide loans. So I mean, kind of really, in desperate situations, loans are something, it's like going to your bank, you have an interest rate and you will have to pay it back after whatever the terms that you agree upon. But there is also that avenue if needed. I can provide some additional information regarding that. But the Livestock Forage program is the one that is designed to help you guys with your feed costs. So I would urge you to call your county office and get signed up for it.
Thank you, Lisa. And any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself again, and I'll repeat for phone. If you're calling in, that is *6 to unmute yourself. And if you are joined by Zoom online, please remember to unmute yourself on your Zoom toolbar.
I got a private message in the chat. Could you please give the number for alert texts again for Union County?
Sure, if we could just go back one slide.
Sure. Let's see. Oops. There you go.
Okay, So yeah, so their code is going to be NM Union, and the number to send that to is 372669.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If there are no other questions at that time, I will encourage everyone, if questions do come up, please feel free to reach out to Lisa. Again, her email address is Lisa, L-I-S-A, Garay, G-A-R-A-Y, @USDA.gov. And we will make sure that her contact information is available on the Quivira Coalition website as well. I will turn it over back to you, Leah.
Thanks, Ariel, for fielding those questions. So thank you so much for attending today. We hope that this was very useful to you, and we are so appreciative to Lisa for joining us and providing that important information on how farmers and ranchers can protect themselves during drought and other situations that can feel dire. So we invite you to come to some upcoming webinars in this series. There's going to be one tomorrow on NRCS resources and PRF drought insurance. There you can either catch it at 12 to 1 or 6 to 7. And on Thursday, the 25th, from 12 to 1 and 6 to 7, you can catch the third part of the series, which is strategic decision making for ranchers during drought. And just to let you know, all of these will be recorded and sent out to all participants in the next couple weeks following the end of this series. So feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'll put myself on video again so you can see my face and connect a name to a face. Yeah, my email is Leah, L-E-A-H-P-W @quiviracoalition.org. That's QUIVIRACOALITION.org. And thank you so much for being here, and we hope we see you tomorrow at at part 2 of the Drought Resources Webinar Series. Everyone, take care.